Alright, it is rant time. Yes, it's been a while since I've had a good old rant about a movie, and I don't want to mislead anyone either. War for the Planet of the Apes, I didn't do a review. I loved the film. Absolutely loved it. I think it's a phenomenal film. It's my favourite film of the year so far, and it hurt me. It really hurt me to knock Logan off that prestigious top spot, but War for the Planet of the Apes, just incredible, and I've said to pretty much everyone I've spoken to about the film, I had about 20 seconds at the end where I just needed to compose myself because it was so powerful. I thought it was a fantastic film. Went against type, you know, and a lot of people have been criticising it because of the way it kind of maybe misleaded people with the marketing that this was going to be a big action film. Really isn't that. I get it, they're trying to sell seats, but you know, I love that it was more about the characters and more about the internal than the external action of war, and the war within yourself. I mean, I could talk about the film for so long, you know. I could, if I made a review for War for the Planet of the Apes, it would be a 45-minute just gush fest about how great it is, and I don't think anyone's really interested in that. So suffice to say, top marks, you know. I think I prefer Dawn, but I think this might be the better film, I'm not sure. But either way, what an incredible trilogy. So what am I ranting about? Well, looking at some reviews for it, you know, most people are very positive, and negative reviews are fine. You know, a friend of mine saw it and she was bored by it. And fair enough, you know, I understand people have different opinions, but I watched this review today by Your Movie Sucks, and yeah, I'm aware of his reviews. I know he's one of the big movie reviewers on YouTube. I don't love his videos, so I don't watch him that often. You know, I wouldn't want to watch him on a daily basis, but I've seen some of his reviews and thought they were quite good. I know he wasn't a fan of the Apes movies, and so this one, again, he thought War for the Planet of the Apes was dumb, cheesy, you know, contrived. And made this 20-minute video kind of dissecting all the things that are wrong with it, and it just struck me, and I didn't watch all of it, I'll admit, and I'm sure he gets to the tunnel, and again, this will spoil the movie in small form. I won't go into any of the big spoilers, but it spoils one particular beat in the first hour of the film. So he goes into certain things, and I'm sure he talked about the tunnel, you know, and I'm sure it was mentioned as a plot hole, no doubt, but a lot of people have said that, you know, oh, such a big plot hole, the tunnel, and it's like, it's a contrivance, it's not a plot hole, you know, it's convenient, but I wouldn't say it's a plot hole, and I hate that term, plot hole. You know, it just really bugs me because it's never really used as much as it should be in the correct form, you know. And yeah, that tunnel, you know, yeah, maybe it was a bit too convenient, but that tunnel gave me a lot of humorous moments, it gave me a lot of tension-filled dramatic moments, so I'm all for the tunnel, you know. And you could argue, well, you could easily argue that the Colonel should have known that it was there, but at the same time, he's a guy who's kind of not really on the full track of sanity, so I could kind of allow him overlooking something like that. It's a small detail that he perhaps wouldn't have anticipated. But anyway, there's one detail in this review from Your Movie Sucks, which it just really gripped my shit. It really tweaked me. I had to make a video about it and just defend it in some small way. He's talking about the moment in which the young girl in the film, who later becomes called Nova, which is kind of a cute reference to the original film, and the ape gorilla Luca, where Luca pulls down a flower from a tree and puts it behind her ear. And then when Luca dies, not too long after that, she tearfully takes it out and puts it behind his ear. I thought that was a beautiful moment. He didn't think so. He thought that it was this contrived moment designed just to make you feel sad, and that it doesn't really work because it isn't developed enough. He also points out that she doesn't react when her father is shot dead. You know, why is that? Well, I'm not sure if it's explicitly said that that was her father who was shot, you know, out there on the cliff, but if it was, clearly by her lack of reaction, it wasn't really a good father, and he was part of that Alpha Omega crew. So clearly not really a good person, so clearly not a good father. And her non-reaction to his death is probably there for a reason. You think someone who puts together a film this good with just, you know, stunning visual effects, in my opinion a great story, great characters, you know, would overlook a character moment like this and think, well, oh, she doesn't care about this father. No. Obviously that's there for a reason, and she had a pretty shit father. When we first see Nova, does she look like a happy kid? No, she doesn't. Okay, so that's that. Caesar's not interested in taking her, you know, but Maurice, he feels compelled. I have to help this girl. I have to do something. I'll stay with her, whatever. So obviously off-screen, Caesar agrees to bring the girl along. They go off to find the Colonel, And a couple of days pass, I'm assuming. By the time they get to that lodge, they meet the other ape who can speak, and then they go off to go to the Colonel's stronghold in the mountains. And that's the moment where we see Luca pull down the little flower and place it behind her ear. Now I've only seen the film once, I can't speak to every little detail, but to me, that was a beautiful moment because it showed this gorilla. And again, if you looked at it stereotypically, the gorilla would be the more dominant, kind of aggressive and powerful ape than, say, Maurice or Caesar. And so it kind of goes against type, where you have this kind of big, imposing gorilla go against type and do something a bit tender. And pull down this flower and put it behind her. Yeah, it was a nice touching moment. And of course he dies fairly soon after that by protecting everyone else. You know, he blocks the gunfire and gets shot. And the girl cries, yes, and she puts the flower behind his ear, yes, because she's returning the gesture. And it's a touching moment. And he was saying that there's no development for this because she has no relationship with Luca. She has a relationship with Maurice because he's the one who wanted to bring her. He's the one who she rides on the back of. You know, it should have been him who died. Well, Maurice is an important character for the rest of the story, which he acknowledges, and he says, well, then it should have been Luca who the girl had a relationship with to develop this moment being sad and earning the emotion. It's precisely the fact that she had no relationship with Luca. You can imagine that he really had no interaction with her. He was just, you know, going along on this trip, on this journey, not really paying too much attention to this girl. He wants to, like Caesar, focus on the task at hand and kind of put the greater good in mind and let's get to this thing and finish it. But of course, as you can see with Luca throwing himself in front of the gunfire, he cares about protecting the people that he's with. He has that sense of pride and that sense of protecting the people that he's with. You know, there's a lot of honor in that character. And so when he approaches her and pulls the flower down, puts it by, he doesn't say anything, you know. He is intelligent, but it's just this tender moment, and it shows you this emotion of kindness towards probably, you know, this young girl who he saw a lot of innocence in, a lot of an unspoiled kind of innocence and beauty perhaps as well. And it's a human, you know, who, by all rights and, you know, all intents and purposes, he should have a vendetta against humans, but it shows you that he doesn't, and that he will judge people on a case-by-case basis, which is a powerful moment within itself, right? Now, you don't need to have all the gaps. I mean, they could have had a scene where they're sat down around a campfire and the girl looks at Luca and he kind of, you know, maybe shuffles away like, you know, dirty girl or whatever like that, you know, the filthy human. But no, we don't need that. We can fill in the gaps that there probably was no interaction between them, any meaningful interaction. But that is what life is. It's about these little meaningful moments where someone decides to just take a gesture. And it doesn't need to be developed. It doesn't need to be set up to be knocked down. It's just there and it happens. And of course she's emotionally affected by this because this big ape, this hulking creature, this animal, who she's no doubt been conditioned to think is the enemy and will kill you and will maul you and will eat you, whatever, turns out to be something that has a heart, that has an emotion to it, that has a tenderness to it, and will do something like that for her. Just, you know, nothing big, just a nice little, you know, sweet gesture. She recognized that within him, obviously, and it must have moved her in some way. And then he dies defending them, and so she is upset by it. How is that in any way something that hasn't been developed, something that you don't need every single detail filled in to the T? That is good storytelling, is a story that unfolds and you don't need to have every single thing spelled out to you. You can just watch it and enjoy it, and that's the thing that bugs me. Like, are we getting to this point now where movie criticism, film criticism is becoming something that is so overanalyzed at this point where people are literally going to watch films with half their brain on, okay, I'm watching the film, I'm taking it in. The other half is on, how can I say this is wrong, or how can I criticize this? You know, you have these videos, 22 reasons that you know, things that are wrong with this film. You know, I just feel like there's a place for film criticism, and hey, I do the same thing. I review movies, I talk about the good and the bad, but I think there's a way to it's overkill at some point, and I think that is overkill. I didn't watch the rest of his review because he lost me at that point when he took a moment that for me was an earnest moment and broke it down into something that is merely a manipulative tool to make the audience feel sad. And it really wasn't, you know. You look at those two characters and where they come from, where they're going. Those two moments make absolute perfect sense, and they don't need this extra development. You know, it's just, character development is something I see. Pacing is something I see a lot where people bring it up and they don't seem to really. They're just throwing words out there, you know. And I think that he's a very good reviewer, by the way. I think he has a lot of great points on a lot of things he talked about. But on that one, I just feel like he was off the mark, and that's when you start to lose me on things like that. And, you know, making this rant reaction based on one little comment that someone made, maybe not the best idea. I'm probably going to incur some ire from people on this, but I just thought it was silly. And it was one of my favorite parts of the film, and so to see someone kind of write it off as just a contrivance, just a, you know, a cheesy kind of manipulation, pulling at the strings, I needed to kind of fire back on it because I thought it was a really good moment in a fantastic film. And it's a different film, it is, and I love that about it. I love how different it is. I love how it just takes its time. It's slow. It's filled with dread. You know, I mean, it's a grim film. It's a really grim film, and that moment with Nova and Luca is one of those shining kind of bright moments. Even though he dies and it's very sad, it's one of those moments that invokes a feeling of hope. You know, for the well, I guess towards the end of the film, there's no hope for kind of the apes and the humans, but, you know, in some way, a hope between kind of, you know, a peaceful, meaningful exchange between two species, which is something that's very important in the film. And ultimately, the film is a tragedy in that sense because it doesn't get resolved between the humans and the apes kind of have to become the dominant species, which kind of speaks to the nature of most humans, perhaps. And so we can, you know, very much look at this film and look back on ourselves and, you know, look at everything that has gone on with war. I think there's a lot of big ideas in at least Dawn and War for the Planet of the Apes that are just, yeah, they really make you think. And sometimes when you look at those big ideas through the prism of a science fiction story, it becomes a bit more clear when you look back at, you know, what we do as a society and as a race, you know, over history. Anyway, that's that. I think it's a great moment, and it just annoyed me, I suppose, and just this overanalyzing and overthinking things. Like, you know, I can't imagine sitting down to watch a film and watching like a character death and going, well, that's contrived, or oh, well, that's this, or well, that's that, or wait, well, there wasn't that scene to build up to the character. Like, you know what? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, you know. And for some people, it won't. Some people, they will kind of balk at it, and that's fine. I mean, you can only look at it the way that you look at it, but I think that if you are sitting there and kind of just trying to deconstruct the thing as it's going along, it's you know, and every film has flaws. I mean, you can find them. I'm sure that War for the Planet of the Apes is riddled with them if you really look and break it down, but ultimately you kind of need to go along for the ride, and hopefully if it's a good ride, then you can do that. Obviously there are those films that are so terrible that you can't be taken on any ride because there's no sense of disbelief there, and you kind of are very aware that it's a bad movie. But in a film as strong as that, I think that you know, maybe looking into it a bit too much. And yeah, at this point I feel like this is a redundant video, but perhaps it's a more different kind of video that I could have done. Instead of me sat here for 45 minutes gushing about War for the Planet of the Apes, I could simply just do a little bit of a different take on it, and even though I'm just kind of, again, reacting to one comment by one person, you know, it is what it is. I thought it was a fantastic film. If you want to hear me talk about the rest of the film, by all means I'll do it, but otherwise, you know, just take it for as read that I loved the film, thought it was fantastic, and I'll probably talk about it down the line and do some kind of big series retrospective on the Apes films, because I'm a big fan of them, and I think it's really Dawn for Planet of the Apes that made me a fan of those films, because I went back and watched all of the originals and even the Tim Burton film. And so now when War came out, I was fully kind of caught up on all the movies and just couldn't wait to see this final chapter of the trilogy, which, fingers crossed, I hope it is the final one. I know they're thinking of doing another one. I feel like it's kind of done. I think you should take the Breaking Bad route and go out when you're on a creative high, because I think that's something that would be a very special ending to that part of the series, at least. So anyway, thanks for watching. Tentatively, I'll say leave your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you, 'cause